Under the molten glow of the desert sun, the wind carrying the scent of mesquite and dust across the open plains, the rancher, Samuel Grayson, rode home slowly, unaware that his life would be carved into two halves before her, and after her, that the line between the two would be drawn that very evening as the sky bled into twilight. He had spent years in silence, choosing the company of cattle and horses over the noise and cruelty of townsfolk who still whispered about the accident that took his brother and left him with guilt carved deep into his bones. Samuel had made peace with the idea that some men simply lived alone, that some hearts were too worn to belong to another. But fate, as it often does, had other plans, because waiting near the edge of his land, standing tall and fierce with the stillness of a carved statue, was an Apache woman who radiated both danger and sorrow, her dark braids brushing against her painted shoulders, her eyes carrying storms he'd never learned how to ride through. Her name was Naylin, daughter of a revered Apache healer, and though she carried herself like a warrior, her trembling breath betrayed that she had come with a burden heavier than any Samuel had ever carried. As he dismounted, she stepped forward with a resolve that made even the horses still. "I choose you to be the father," she said, words that cracked the air. Words so sharp and unexpected that Samuel froze, his hands still on the reins, unsure if he had heard her correctly or if the loneliness of the plains had finally turned to hallucination. Naylin explained in a voice both powerful and breaking that her village had been struck by drought and sickness, and after the death of her husband in a raid, the tribal council had pressured her into a union with a man she did not want, an older warrior whose cruelty was whispered about even by the bravest hunters. But Naylin refused to live under fear again. She was searching for a man of honor, someone the spirits could trust to father the child she carried, though she carried no child yet. The tribe had a prophecy. The next generation had to be born of a bond chosen freely, not forced. She had watched Samuel from afar for months, seeing how he treated the land, the animals, and even strangers with patience and quiet strength. To her, that was the mark of a man worthy of fatherhood. But Samuel shook his head, overwhelmed, insisting she must have mistaken him for someone better, someone braver. "I'm not a father," he said. "I'm not even a good man." Naylin stepped closer, her hand rising to his jaw with the gentleness of a falling leaf, and said, "A bad man would claim he is good. A good man fears he is not enough." Her words cut deeper than any blade. She wasn't asking out of desperation, she was choosing. Boldly, defiantly, and he could either step forward or step aside and leave her to a cruel fate. She needed shelter, protection, and time to make her own choices without fear. Samuel, torn between the ghosts of his past and the startling fire in her eyes, offered her a place to stay on his ranch just for the night. He told himself, though his heart whispered otherwise. That night, as she sat near the firelight, telling him stories of her people, stories of battles fought not with weapons but with spirit and endurance, Samuel felt something stirring in him. Something he had buried long ago. The instinct to protect, to care, to belong. But danger followed her like a shadow. Before dawn, a group of warriors arrived on the ridge, led by the very man Naylin refused to wed. They demanded she return. Samuel stepped in front of her without thinking, his hand hovering near his holster, though he knew drawing a weapon would ignite a war. Instead, he spoke with a steady courage he didn't know he still possessed, telling them she was under his protection and would not be taken against her will. The standoff felt like the entire desert held its breath, until at last the warriors backed away, not because they feared Samuel, but because Naylin, with her shoulders squared and chin lifted, announced before them all that she had chosen her future. Chosen the man she wanted to father the legacy of her people, and no force on earth or spirit in the sky had the right to take back a woman's choice. When they rode off, leaving a curl of dust in their wake, Samuel exhaled for the first time in what felt like years, realizing his hands were trembling not from fear, but from the weight of what she had given him, trust, purpose, and maybe even the chance at a family he never dared imagine. Days turned into weeks, and what began as protection grew into something deeper and quieter. built through shared labor, shared meals, and shared silences that somehow felt like confessions. Samuel watched her braid her hair in the sunrise, watched her soothe injured horses with a tenderness he had never seen, watched her stitch new life into the ranch with every step she took, and Nayland watched him to how he rose before dawn, how he spoke gently even when exhausted, how he carried pain without bitterness, and how his eyes softened whenever she laughed. The moment she finally placed her hand over his heart and whispered, "If you choose me to, the spirits will bless us," Samuel felt the last of his walls crumble like brittle clay in the rain. He chose her not out of obligation, not out of prophecy, but out of a love that had taken root quietly and grew fiercely. In the end, it wasn't just about fatherhood. It was about two broken souls choosing each other, choosing a future neither thought they deserved. And to the audience watching this story unfold, if you want more tales of courage, love, fate, and the wild beauty of the Old West, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps these stories alive and brings more powerful narratives your way. Don't forget to like, comment, and share so this story reaches those who still believe in destiny, choice, and the kind of love that can change everything. ****